Hey, Jasmine, how are you? Good afternoon.
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Wow, it's been a while, a couple of months at least since we last saw each other, but I guess that's the new norm now.
It has. I think that was the last conference that I attended. I think after that we were all grounded. So good to see
Yeah,
you again.
yeah. Likewise, very good to see you as well. How's everything?
We're
You
holding up.
yeah, getting accustomed to this new life of working from home.
I am. I think I've been excited to get into more of a routine. Obviously, we all travel a lot, and so that can be disruptive. And so I've just been trying to use the time as productively as possible. And I think we're living in interesting times. It feels like we just keep getting, having different occurrences. And so I think in some ways it's good that we're all home and really have time to reflect.
Yeah. Have you picked up any new hobbies or anything while you're? I can't imagine you. I know you're extremely busy, so that may not be the case, but
We have been busy. I for my personal time, I don't know that I would call it a hobby, but I've definitely taken the time and started redecorating. I've done a complete overhaul of my space since we're spending so much time in there, and
right.
as well as I've spent it a lot of the time reconnecting with friends and family that I don't normally get to speak with, even other colleagues throughout the industry. I think the great thing is that all of us, aren't traveling, and so in some ways, it's easier to connect with people. So that's what I've been using time for. How about you?
Yeah, likewise. I've been spending a lot of time with my family, reconnecting with friends, like you said,
Hmm.
that I haven't spoken to in quite some time. Everyone's always used to texting, and it's very interesting where you just pick up the phone and call somebody, and they're taken aback because no one really picks up the phone anymore. It's always just
Exactly.
SMS or WhatsApp messages or whatnot. So that's been actually something that I'm grateful for, just hearing their voices, and so just reconnecting. I think, like you said, it gives you some time to just reflect on where you are and spend more time with friends and family and just you know just be more aware of the situation. A quick background
Absolutely.
on who you are. You're the head of diverse investing at Cambridge Associates. I know you look to build relationships with institutional investment managers that have women and minority owners. And I believe at present you probably have about 500 or so relationships. So if there's anything else
Sure.
that you want to expand on that, feel free to do that.
Sure. Sure. So yeah, so about 500 managers that we have research on. Uh, that expands to about a thousand or so different strategies for each of those managers. And the way that we've thought about it is really expanding outside of ownership. And so not only looking at diversely owned firms, but we think it also makes sense to look at firms that are led by diverse teams or individual strategies that have been intentional around the diversity on those teams, as well as on the private side, looking at strategies that tend to invest in diverse founders, as well as products and services and companies that disproportionately impact those communities. And so we're really trying to take a pretty comprehensive look at the space.
Now, I know as the economy is slowly reopening, a lot of firms are now starting their operations. There seems to be a lot of opportunities that are coming up in the distress space.
Mhm.
Now, what are you seeing in that space, firstly? And then secondly, are LPs ready to deploy substantial amounts of
Mhm.
capital in these special situation strategies? And then another follow-up question, is the infra space another large opportunity right now
Mhm.
that will give you better or better than average returns going forward? I think, people are talking about infrastructure in the sense that there'll be more job creation, and that might be actually better for not just hiring people, but also for rebuilding our country, since we do lack in a lot of infrastructure right now in this country.
Yeah, no, infrastructure is definitely, I think, a good opportunity for the country overall. I think what we've definitely been busy on both ends. So as and a global investment company, I think we've been busy on first working with our clients and really helping manage those portfolios. And I think the view that we have is across several client practices. And so it gives us a different perspective that clients will have different liquidity needs. And so there are going to be some organizations that are going to be more constrained from a liquidity perspective, whether that's because they are a foundation that wants to be maybe more intentional around the investments that they're doing in this environment, or maybe they're an institution where operations are more constrained given that everyone is at home and sheltering in place, and maybe needs to increase their internal amount of spend. And so I think that informs the level to which LPs or asset owners are going to be opportunistic. I would say that we have definitely seen an increase in the number of strategies and on the opportunistic side, as well as in the distress space that we are reviewing. And I will say that there's been a little bit of a barbell in terms of the number of strategies coming to market. And so there have been, just with the drawdowns in the market, there's going to be some firms that maybe were previously hard to access that have opened up, and we can be opportunistic in looking at those, as well as there are going to be managers that maybe were in the credit space or focusing specifically on distressed opportunities that are also coming back with new funds as well. And we're taking a look at those. I would say that overall, we're probably just being, cautiously opportunistic is maybe how I would describe it.
Okay, great. No, thank you for that. Now, as a consultant, I know you have to do a lot of due diligence, mainly on site. Now, since you're unable to do that and visit with GPs, how are you conducting that type of due diligence right now? And secondly, have GPs slowed down in their fundraising, or have they put them on pause, or what do you see in the market right now?
I think I've seen a little bit of everything in terms of the fundraising cycle. So there are strategies that that were anticipated to fundraise the end of the year that that are coming back earlier. And so we've been busy on that end, as well as I think for any GP that already was in the process of fundraising, I think they rightly so are continuing that fundraising process. I think where you've seen the pause are maybe GPs that were in the beginning stages of fundraising and maybe we're trying to build new relationships. I think that's going to be harder in this environment. Our view is that we've been, doing as much due diligence as possible, but obviously we still have our requirements in terms of our fiduciary duties, and being able to go on site was a big part of that. I think where you can still get work done, we are, if it's an existing relationship, or or builds off of work that we had done previous to COVID, we're continuing that. But I think for any investor, I think this environment presents challenges, but I think it also does present some opportunities to deepen existing relationships as well. And so we've seen a bit of that.
Okay, good. Now maybe a personal question. When you look back at 2020 in December, what are the three changes that you hope will have taken place given what's happening, politically and socially right now in our country, not only in our country, but just globally right now?
And I think that maybe I'll give you one. I hope that what maintains is an increased level of empathy. And I think that's come in waves over this period. So first, when everyone was working from home, what I think was given more consideration was that everyone's home environment is different. There are some people that were challenged with schooling children as well as doing a job, and from home. There were people that were lucky enough to have a home big enough where they could have separate places to conduct work, and there were some that had to make space in the middle of their dining room or their kitchen. There were people that had to share space and people that were alone. And I think that what's been great is that we have increased our awareness that everyone's not in the same place. And I think that has become particularly acute in the recent environment with I think the social inequity in this country, and I think what's been great is that everyone's been at home, which has given the space for people to personally reflect on how their environment or their situation may not be the same as someone else. And so I hope that that empathy remains once this is over.
And what are your thoughts on large conferences going forward? Do you think that that's something
Mm,
that's in the past, or yeah, what are your thoughts on that? And in terms of um, are people going to be working from home more remotely than and then going to the office? I know a lot of big firms are thinking about shutting down some of their closing down some of their office buildings and to be more economical and cutting some of the overhead.
hmm.
What do you think is going to happen? I mean, look, we're on Zoom right now, and
We are.
I never thought I'd be this spending this much time on Zoom or Microsoft Teams in my entire life that I've done in the last 3 months. So
We are, and obviously it's effective, but I would say that I would rather be doing this in person with
of
you
course,
than over Zoom. And so
right.
I think that at some point we do get back to having those conferences. I think if anything, this period has showed us the value of having those in-person meetings. But at least for me personally, I think this has been a period to also reflect on how you've spent your time and maybe being more thoughtful about that. And so I think those conferences will go on, and I look forward to seeing you again in person
Of
one day.
course, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but
one
yeah,
day.
but I definitely, yes, but hopefully, but I do think people might be more considerate about hopping on that plane and whether that meeting is really necessary.
You think handshakes are over with now? Are we done with handshakes?
I don't think so. I think it's ingrained in us. It will come back. We'll be yeah. One day.
Yeah, I've heard varying stories, like no more handshakes. I think that's done,
It'll come back.
something of the
I think
past
it comes
now.
back.
I agree.
I,
I think it comes back as well.
yeah.
Um, okay, great. I'm just gonna call this a rapid fire round. I'm just gonna ask you a couple of quick questions or phrases, and just tell me what comes to your mind, or the first word that comes to your mind.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah. So your favorite show on Netflix, Hulu, or anything that you're watching right now?
On Netflix right now, I'm getting deep into Ozarks right now.
Oh, that's great.
On yeah, that's pretty good. I also Billions is back on regular TV. I love that it feels like there's an impact investing angle this season. There's like a little bit of an undercurrent,
I can see that.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I like. And then yeah, but I've also been doing a lot more of the documentaries. There was the Madam C.J. Walker one, so I've been pretty deep into the Netflix and Hulu.
Okay, great. Any specific book that you have picked up recently that you recommend to to us, or
Recently, so I think obviously there's been lots of book lists that have come out this week.
right?
Biased is the one that I'm circling back to, which
Okay.
was done by Dr. Eberhardt out at Stanford, because I think this is a time to really reflect on our own investment process and allocation process. And while we all know that bias exists, what I think is the more interesting work is figuring out how inequities show up in our allocation process versus just forcing inclusion of a certain group. I think we really have to dig into the individual behaviors.
And once the lockdown is officially over and done with, like, what is the
Mhm.
first restaurant you're gonna go visit or try that you haven't done so
Oh,
far?
that I haven't. So right before lockdown, there was a fantastic Cuban restaurant that opened up near our office, where they've taken an old bank and turned it into uh, a Cuban, inspired little Havana type feel place. And I haven't been over there obviously in a long time, but I hope that place is still there. And I'd love to go back.
Okay, great. Well, I thank you for your time. I know it's very busy. I know you've got a lot on your plate, so we really do appreciate you taking the time off and to speak with us. And have a great weekend. And I look forward to seeing you sooner rather than later, and
Absolutely.
at a conference or another virtual chat like we're having right now. Then.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.